First question is about tomorrow's game. Is it fair to characterise it as one between a team that's out of form at the moment, entertaining a team that's very much in form?
Is it fair, did you say? No, I don't think so. I think we are where we are. I wouldn't say we're out of form. I think the team is giving everything it's got, doing its best. I don't think it's out of form. I think it's competing, and yet you play against good teams. It's really difficult to get results. So yeah, I don't think we're out of form. We went to Norwich away and won 1-0. So to answer your direct question, no, I think it's not fair. But I would say Luton are obviously found a way to win football matches recently. I think 3 1-0s on the bounce, I think it was. So defensively very, very solid, very strong, very powerful and physical at the top end of the pitch. I think they've got, along with Burnley, the best away record in the league, so they make life really difficult. I think they get the ball up pretty quickly to 2 big strikers. They're athletic, they're strong. Yeah, it's a big challenge for us, but we've got a few of them coming. Norwich was a big challenge, and Sheffield United was a big challenge. Luton, and after that Burnley, they're all big challenges. So yeah, but that's okay, because as I've constantly said, I think it's all a learning curve for them, and we should enjoy the challenge of playing against these teams.
So in other words, the results that you've had lately don't reflect the way the teams play?
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah. I think what you're not doing is not putting into context the team that we're putting out, and the team that we're putting out is giving everything it's got, and against some of these teams it's very difficult to win because they're better than us. And but when I say better, I mean hugely more experienced, understand more the division, and but I think we're competing just about in every game this season. Obviously the one that jumps out is Stoke at home, where we lost pretty heavily, but apart from that I think we compete pretty well in every game. There's not much in it between a lot of the teams in the league, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose, but I think the narrative you're trying to create there is, I don't think we're in bad form just because we haven't won games, because we've won games when we've played worse than some of the games we've lost. So we are trying to compete week in, week out, and because of the diversity of the league, some really big, strong, experienced teams and some pretty good football teams. Every game's different, and yeah, we're trying to acclimatise to the division and the different qualities of the division.
I mean, there's just 9 games left. I can't believe it. I have to go and count them to make sure that was right. So, with 9 games left, what are the goals now for Sunderland for the rest of the season?
Enjoy the football, try and keep growing as a team. We keep getting thrown different challenges with unavailable players, and then some players coming back who are not quite ready, and yet we can put them on the bench and give them a bit of time. Yeah, I think the team have for the vast majority of this season competed really well in most of the games, and that's what we have to do for the last 9 games: compete well, see how we go, see how many points we get, and see where it takes us, see where we finish in the league.
I mean, can we talk about the playoffs? Is that still a realistic target?
You obviously haven't been in here every week. I've been saying you have to win games if you're going to get the playoffs. At this moment we're not winning games, and so the gap gets bigger and bigger, and it becomes more difficult. 3-4 weeks ago it was something that the fans could probably dream about. I think it's becoming more difficult now, and but from our perspective it's not dragging us down. We have to just concentrate on the next game and play the next fixture. I've talked to the team about, before the Sheffield game, 10 big events, and let's take them all on one at a time, and we'll see where it takes us, see how we get on, without worrying about the league table. Let's just play the games, and which is what we're doing really. So see where it takes us, see where we get to. I think it's a very obvious outside the team thing to look at the table and think, whoa, yeah, if we could finish here, we could finish there. I think the footballers need to just compete in the division and test themselves against the players in this league, and then keep trying to improve and get better. And so when we have another go we can win some games that we drew, and we can draw some games that we lost, and we get more points, and the club moves closer to its end goal target of trying to get back to the Premier League in the next few years.
You talked earlier about availability of players, so what's the situation please for tomorrow? I mean, particularly with the line on Wednesday.
Luton Town should be alright. Few didn't train today. We're going to see tomorrow, see whether they're going to be available. Few coming back. Ahmed trained today, so there's a positive for us. But yeah, like for a long time since I first walked in here, we've got different challenges in different positions and different areas, and players who might be available, who are not available. And you'll see when the team sheet comes out, and you think, well, why is he not playing well? Probably it's not for me to tell you the day before he was available. If it's not available, you'll just have to assess by the team sheet when it comes in. So, well, yeah, as always, we've got some challenges, but we'll give it our best shot and hopefully be competitive in the game.
Thanks, Tony.
Hi, Tony. Obviously, Wednesday night you were unhappy with the officiating. You spoke about that at the time. Does the nature of how that result came about, has that fired the boys up, or are you just telling them to look at it as a clean slate against Luton and to start again?
Yeah, I think so. I think each game, as I've said to you there, each game in our minds is going to be like an individual event, really, that we have to turn up to and give a best account of ourselves. And yet, it's been difficult over a long period, as it is for every team in this division, because the games generally come every 3 days, and it makes it really hard to focus on one event, because they sort of just roll into the next game. And as I've said to you, there's so many different teams playing different styles and different ways that it's really difficult to prepare properly for the next game. And so what we try to do is focus on ourselves and be the team that we are, and see if they can cope with what we bring at our best, and but be mindful that they are a football team or a direct team, or man for man all over the pitch. How are they going to play? So we have to give the team the pictures of that, but then you haven't really done the work on the grass, because there's no real time to do that, or you've done very little of it. But that's the preparation. Listen, we're just looking forward to the next challenge, and I'd have to say that this challenge is a tough one. Luton, when you look at them, they've come a long way in a short period of time. I think their journey, again, having played against Luton for the last 2 or 3 years, remember speaking to Mickey Hartford and Paul Hart saying, they played Blackburn Rovers when I was in charge maybe 3 years ago, saying that they'd like to get to where we were at. And I look at them now, and they are doing exceptionally well. They are actually competing with Blackburn for 3rd and 4th in the league, 5th in the league, or whatever they are. So and they did that last year as well. So it's not a fluke. They're not one of these little teams who have fluked their way into the division at the top end. They are very, very competitive. They're strong, they're powerful, they flood the box full of men, they're a very athletic team, and we have to be ready for that if we can, and we have to try and impose what we do on the game. But as we've seen over recent weeks, sometimes that's not easy for us because of the nature of the team we are and the inexperience of the team, but we will once again give it our best shot.
Obviously, the game on Wednesday wasn't the result you wanted, but you must take a lot of heart from the fact that the lads really fought till the end, and could well have got that equaliser as well.
I take a lot of heart. I take a lot of heart every day. I maybe don't get it across to you, but I'm really happy with this team, and yet it's not the team we want to put out. There's probably 7 players that would get in the starting line of this team at any given weekend that are not available, that don't play because of injury. But the players that we are choosing from, I can't question their drive and their desire and their commitment. Every game, I would have to suggest, even losing at home 5-1, it shows you what they're made of. They go away to Norwich and win 1-0 against a team who were in the Premier League last year. So, and okay, we lose against Sheffield United, who was second in the division, and their motivation for that game was huge, because they just watched Middlesbrough drop 2 points, and it was a huge opportunity for them. And I think by some really poor officiating, they got over the line and got the 3 points. Otherwise, really, we'd have put the point in the bag and we'd have moved on and thought, listen, that's just the next test for us. We got a point against the team second in the league, which is showing that we can compete. And so we have to take the positives out of where we are, and not think, oh, we've only won 1 in 5 or whatever the stat is. You have to take the positives of competing in each game against the opposition that you're playing against. After Luton, we've got to go to Burnley. It's we go and give it as good an account of ourselves as we can, and hopefully come away with a 1-0 win. But at the same time, that might be the game that they can get promoted on. You never know. So let's just look forward to the challenge, really, and just keep competing and trying to have programmes during the week in between the games where the players, the individuals, can improve and get better, and show them what we feel as if they need to improve at, and collectively just try and keep making the club better, the players better, the team better, without the expectation that we have to win every game. For me, we have to compete in every game and make sure the supporters feel that we are competing.
And you've got the break coming up as well. How are you planning to use that break? What is it, a case of getting some of the lads back up to fitness and kind of nursing some of the lads through injuries? Or
I think generally the injuries, we've got are long-term injuries, so no, I don't sit here and think, oh, it's all right, after the international break we'll have 3 or 4 back, because we won't. I think, as I've said, these games we are treating them as individual events, big events that we have to turn up and compete and show that we are ready for. And what's the plan in national break? I think we got 7 or 8 going away. So that what did we have today? We have 16, and then we bring up some under 18s, under 21s to make the numbers up to have a 10v10. So if 8 are going away and we've got 16 training, so there'll only be 8 in training. And so what are we going to do with them? Work the individuals and work on, so if they're wingers, we'll work on their crossing and their delivery into the box. If they're strikers, we'll work on their finishing. If they're defenders, we'll work on their defensive qualities, whether it be passing or heading or whatever it is. We're here to try and improve the players. And in national breaks, you haven't got all your team, so it's very difficult to work on your team. And I talk about the ideal scenario would be that you'd work with your team for 2 weeks and get really ready for the next game. The reality is we're playing on a Friday night against Burnley, and 3 or 4 of them won't be back even till Wednesday afternoon. So we'll have one day to prepare for Burnley with what will be a team, and they'll have probably played 2 or 3 games in a foreign country somewhere and flown back the day before, and they're probably not quite ready for it. But I don't want to sit here and I am. They're feel like their excuses that, we're going to be ready for Burnley because you've got 2 weeks to prepare. Well, really, you haven't got 2 weeks to prepare, because we've got 7 or 8 footballers away with their countries who won't get back till the middle of that week before we have to play on a Friday night. So it's never easy. I'm just trying to be realistic with you and tell you the problems that you have, because otherwise you might think, well, come on, you've had 2 weeks to prepare for Burnley, you should give a really good account of yourselves. We've probably got 1 day to work on Burnley.
And lastly from me, obviously Luton changed their manager in the early part of the season, but have still managed to kind of keep that consistent front foot ethos in the way that they play. What have you made of the job he's done since he's come in?
I think he's been clever, because he hasn't changed very much from what I can see. I think the environment of playing at Kenilworth Road is quite unique. I think it's really tight and small, and I think they use their energy and their commitment to make life really difficult for teams. But there's a few teams who play with the intensity they play. I think they are almost like an upgrade on some of them teams in our league that play a certain way. I think they've got bags of energy. I think they lock teams in, they get it forward, they make you defend, they don't make it easy for you to pass through them and get out. It's not an accident that they're up in the top 6, and I think a huge credit the fact that the coach has been, assessed what he's got, seen that it's not broken, and it wasn't broken because the manager that he replaced didn't get sacked. It wasn't poor results. He went to manage in the Premier League, so he took over a very good team, and he's just kept them going, and he's done a very good job doing that.
Thanks, Tony.
Great news for Anthony, the England coach.
Yeah, listen, and richly deserved, I think. Just as I said, I've said week in, week out, really, the steadiness he brings, the composure he brings, the fact he makes big saves that help you win football matches. Delighted for him, really. It'll be great for him to go into a different working environment with probably 3 other goalkeepers and the goalkeeping coaches for England and do the work and see what it's like in that environment, and hopefully he gets some game time. I'm not sure whether he's going to play or whether he's going for the experience, but it's great that he's been called up and recognised, and good for the club, but obviously great for Anthony, and hopefully he enjoys it. 2 good venues, obviously one of them's Craven Cottage, which he was at 6-8 weeks ago, whatever it was, and the King Power Stadium, I think. So going and playing in some Premier League stadiums, and it'll be a great experience for him.
It's quite unique, isn't it, to have such a young keeper as first choice for a team that are doing well at the top of the Championship. It says a lot about him as qualities as a keeper and his character, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think he's. I wasn't here at the start of this journey, but how he broke into the team, who he replaced, why that happened, and yet he's obviously played in some pretty big football matches for the club and done exceptionally well, and continues to do exceptionally well, and that's down to the personality, really, the traits that he brings, the calmness he brings, I've talked about goalies in the past. Some goalies, I call them like a box of frogs, really, always bouncing around, always shouting at everybody, always screaming, pointing and blaming everybody else on the pitch. And then you've got a band of goalies who are just super calm and cool and know how to do their job, and you get brilliant goalies who are both. And Anthony's just a big steady guy who's really good at keeping the ball out of his net and dealing with crosses, and he's got growth areas, as all you would expect young boys to have, growth areas of his distribution at times needs to be worked on, and he's getting worked on, but he doesn't have many what I would call faults, and yet it'd be amazing to see what he's like when he hits 30 and still got potentially 6-8 years still to play, when he's so young now and so good at what he does, and he's obviously got a big future in front of himself.
When you asked there about kind of the ambitions for the rest of the season, obviously not overplaying players and playing for the future, but is it a chance for the players to show that they can and should be right at the heart of your thinking for next season?
I think that's always the case, and I spend a lot of time talking about football careers to them. Only because here I am sitting here, and my football career's gone, and theirs will be gone before they can bat an eyelid, really, and they have to enjoy it. They have to express themselves. They have to play with emotion and passion, show the world what they can do and what they bring. Otherwise, it'll be gone and you'll have regrets. And so, these occasions, these matches, they should be huge events in their lives, really. And that's why I would, try to wring out of them every ounce of what they've got in talent, but in sweat and blood and work rate, because this is their football career and they should maximise it, and if they've got enough talent they'll get to the Premier League, and if they can spend 5 or 6 years in the Premier League they'll probably never have to work again after football. I'm just trying to, young minds are difficult to take down the right path. I'm trying to guide them down a pathway that, nothing comes too easy for anybody in any profession. You have to work hard, you have to be committed, you have to be concentrated, you have to focus, and the more of them I can connect with and try and explain what they have to do to be a top footballer, and they buy into it and they come along on the journey, the better chance we'll have of having a really good team. Now there's no arrogance in that from me, it's just I've been down the road, I've been down the journey. I maximised my career, I think, because I was just a big lad who could edit and was from a steel town where my dad was a scaffolder and had a personality, really, and so you have to bring that. And that, not everybody's like that, of course, because some of our team are from a more privileged background and they've never had to fight and scrap, and I was miles away from being anywhere near the best youth team players at Middlesbrough, where I grew up as a kid, and yet I feel what got me there was my character, my drive to practice every day. I didn't used to get in the coach's car. I used to run the 2.5 miles to the training ground every day just to build my stamina up and run back after collecting the balls, just because I knew it was going to make me better. And that's just one example, but you have to live the life of a footballer if you want the rewards of being a top footballer. And all I'm trying to do is just get inside the mindset of our players, really. And it's it's not easy sometimes.
And do you think that message is getting through? Because when you're saying there about kind of living the life of a footballer, you said a couple of weeks ago that Patrick Roberts, as an example, is doing that now.
I think so. No, I told you last week, I said to Patrick the other day, you have to break world records today, mate, and he did. He's running over 11,000 metres now, and hopefully he'll do it 3 times this week. So and if he can, there's his standard. He can't let it slip. He's setting his own standards, and he has to keep going and keep doing it, because he's amazing with the ball at his feet. But if he does the running and the work and the graft for the team, it helps the team win football matches, and he'll enjoy it more. But that's just one example. There's lots of them with their own goals that they have to try and achieve, really, and that's why I try not to get too uptight about it. If we were looking over our shoulder, like if we were one of them 7 or 8 teams in the Premier League that there's 5 points between the team at the bottom and the team in mid-table, you'd be sitting there thinking, we're doing all right, but it's a bit scary because if we lose 3 on the bounce, we're probably going to be in the bottom 3. That threat's not there for us, and so we've lost a few games. I'm more interested in their effort, their performance level, their drive, their love of the game, and are they getting better? And sometimes you can lose games. So we didn't deserve to get beat at Coventry. We had 72% of the ball. We had more shots than them. We had more touches in the penalty area. All of the stats that mean nothing, because all that matters is the goals that go in, which is why the other night I was really annoyed, because the refs, they don't only have one job. They've got loads of jobs. But the goals, they can't get the goals wrong, because that's the scoreline. We lost 2-1 because he messed up and didn't say it was offside when it was undoubtedly offside. We've had the head of the referees phone us up personally and apologise. Since, yeah. Apologise for the decision that cost us 3 points, or cost us 1 point. But listen, we have to live with it. And then, with total respect to this gentleman, you get asked questions about your form. Well, the form's all right, but the result drives the narrative of the form, doesn't it? And if you've lost 4 out of 5, it's really hard to sit up here and think, we're doing all right. Listen, I don't see that we're having poor form. I think the form's all right, and yet we've lost some games. Yet the reality is, play really well, you win more games than you lose. And there is reasons why. We haven't got any strikers who naturally want to run in behind teams and stretch them and allow space for our clever creative players, and so we are playing not at half cock, but we're playing a game that we're trying to find the answers. And this is why we've talked about this. We played Stoke City and lost 5 because we're trying to play a game that we know we shouldn't play against teams like that, but we haven't got any other option other than kick it back to them and let them have the ball all the time, and we'll try and play like they're trying to play, because we want to play with the ball. But by playing with the ball against some teams, you're asking for trouble, because so many teams in this league now that are so good at pressing and pushing in behind the ball and locking in, as Luton will be so good at pressing. They're 4th in the league for pressing the teams they play against them. So if we're going to try and play through them and they're going to press that hard, it's dangerous. But the option is kick it over the top and let them have it at the back, and then let's see if they can play through us. But they won't, because they'll play it off their 2 big strikers who'll nod it down in our box, and we'll have to defend it well. And so I'm not trying to be clever, I'm just saying I can see the narrative of the game. I can see how this game's going to be. We can either make it really scrappy and it'll be 0-0 for a long time, or we can try and play our game, and if we can get through, we'll score. And if we can't and they keep nicking it off us, they might score. And we haven't got the tools at this moment to change it, to make it more one-sided for us.
Last one from me. The likes of Ross, Corey, Badgie, I know obviously they've not been reckoning for this season at all, but how are they all doing in general? How's the rehab coming along? Listen,
they're good around the dressing room, they're good around the building. It's important that they're there. I just had a bit of a laugh there with Ross, hobbling on in his big boot, but they're in good form. It's important that they're here doing their rehab, because they're important for our dressing room. We've got a lot of young players, I say young, inexperienced players for the league, and sometimes they need a G up after defeats, because results can affect belief and confidence, and so they need some experienced players to be there for them and tell them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, as opposed to that the old bloke who's always shouting at them or telling them what they need to do better. It's better coming from their peers in the dressing room and telling them that, listen, you have to do this better, or listen, I thought you were really good at that the other day. And it's good coming from the skipper or from the the main striker or the experienced players. So yeah, it's good that they're around.